Hello and welcome. Hollywood's all about blockbuster movies. So how easy is it to make smaller budget films that might be a little deeper than the usual simple action-adventure, comedy or pulp romance? What sort of future is there for the storyteller who uses cinematography more than dialogue? We'll ask one young British director who's doing precisely that. Asif Kapadia says he follows the classical method of movie making, which uses incredibly natural landscapes and atmospheric lighting. Kapadia allows his actors to just be. Well, we'll just get to him in a moment, but first take a look at an excerpt from his latest work, Far North, which stars the acclaimed Asian actress Michelle Yeoh. The film Far North is currently showing at London's 51st Film Festival. Its award-winning director Asif Kapadia joins us from there to take your questions. Remember, you can contact us at the numbers on the bottom of your screen. Asif, good to have you with us.
Glad to be here. Hi, Bruce.
Well, you know that clip we just saw, Far North. As I'd said in the opening introduction, that you use more cinematography than dialogue. Apart from the screaming, there wasn't a lot of dialogue in that. I guess is that intentional, that you really want to focus on the pictures and not the words?
Yeah, it's something I got into when I was making my short films at film school. I really wanted to make films where you had to watch the screen, and I wanted to make films which were, like I said, slightly more old-fashioned. I don't really go for visual effects and things like that. So really, the story is told through the images and through the pictures and through the editing. And there's very minimal dialogue. My first film, The Warrior, probably had about 7 minutes worth of dialogue. This has a little bit more, but still, a lot of the time, the actors are really telling the story through their gestures and through the looks, I suppose.
We'll get on to The Warrior as well in a little bit, in just a little bit. But I have to ask you, when you say old-fashioned or sort of classical style of filmmaking, it may be a bit cliche, but I guess I should ask you who your influences are, whose work you've admired.
Oh wow! I mean, there's a huge list. You know, I'm a huge fan of Alfred Hitchcock. I like Roman Polanski's early films. I was really inspired a lot by Chinese cinema, the kind of fifth generation of people like Yang Yimou, who made like films like Raise the Red Lantern and Story of Qiju, but also earlier directors, Robert Bresson from France. There's a French director called Tran Un Hung who made a film called Center Green Papaya and another film called Cyclo. He's a French-Vietnamese director, and that was a big influence on me as well. I mean, there's a huge number of directors, apart from the obvious things like Martin Scorsese and Francis Ford Coppola, but I suppose I lean more towards the Asian and the European style of filmmaking.
Who seem to be less concerned with the sort of choppy action adventure, and they're more focused on expressions. I mean, I watch a lot of films from overseas, and I guess that's much more the focus there as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I just suppose it's something to do with the pacing as well. You know, I'm not really the kind of trying to do kind of films which are cutting every 2 or 3 seconds. I just like to be able to hold a shot, and so I suppose the pacing is something that's slightly different. If you're used to watching films on TV, you know, you get used to channel hopping. Whereas if you watch something on a cinema, you're likely to give it a little bit more space and time to breathe, I suppose.
Well, the film Far North that you made that's being released now, you faced a lot of challenges, not just by the virtue of the fact it was filmed in the Arctic Circle. In fact, how did that, I mean, the cold environment, treacherously cold environment, affect the way you approached the project? I
mean, on certain days when we were researching the film, I was up in the Arctic travelling there quite a lot. The temperature touched sort of -40, and we were travelling on snowmobiles across the frozen seas. And so when you went into the wind and the wind chill factor hit you, it was nearly -60. So it was so cold, you know, you can't really think in those temperatures. And if any of your body is exposed, you run the risk of it falling off. So you have to be very, very careful. Also, we're in polar bear territory. We were shooting on an island called Svalbard, which is a Norwegian island. And there's only about 1,000 people who live there, but there's over 3,000 polar bears. So you couldn't just go off. If you saw something nice, you couldn't just go off on your own and take a picture. Everywhere we went, we were surrounded by some local people with rifles, just in case we came across a hungry bear to scare it off. You're not allowed to shoot polar bears, but it was just to make enough noise for it to kind of go away. Right. So it's quite dangerous. Well, we also had to live on a Russian icebreaker. Oh dear. There were no hotels where we were shooting.
We're going to take another look, Asif, we're going to take another look at a clip from Far North. In this one, the main character, Seva, which is played by Michelle Yeoh, talks to her daughter Anja about the younger one's desire to leave the environment, the home environment.
We're leaving. I want a family. I wanted my children to grow up with others, to have everything I didn't. You know nothing about him. Who he is, what he told me everything. I know it will not be easy there, but I have to take this chance. There has to be more than this.
Asif, there again, it's the dialogue. As you don't have much dialogue in the film, as you say, but the dialogue set outdoors. Was the intention to show that kind of outdoor setting as much as possible?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you go all that way, you want to use it. You know, you've got to make that part of the story. Also, because of the nature of the landscape, what it does is it really drives the characters to do pretty extreme things, and that's part of the story. What is revealed in the ending, in the climax of the film, is quite a kind of shocking twist.
Just don't tell us.
And that was really inspired by the harshness of where they live. No, I won't give it away.
You know, I've got to ask you, how was it working with veteran actors such as Michelle Yeoh and Sean Bean, a brilliant actor who plays the main male character, Loki? Of course, they come from such different backgrounds themselves.
Mm. I mean, it's interesting. That's part of the story. The story is the meeting of two different groups of people. The Michelle Yeoh's character and a younger girl, Michelle Krusek, are playing as if they're kind of indigenous people, reindeer herder people that live up in the Arctic, and Sean Bean's character plays a soldier who's kind of escaping from a particular world and comes across them, and they save his life. And it's really this triangle that forms between these two groups of people meeting. In terms of working with the actors, I knew it was going to be a very challenging film. It was going to be a very tough film. So a lot of the time when you're meeting actors, you spend half your time trying to get them to do the movie and the other half scaring them off, just in case there's anyone that's not going to be into the difficulty of shooting in the Arctic. You want to know up front. Michelle Yeoh is such a strong actor, and she has such a kind of history of being kind of an action actress, really. But she was really brilliant. She came on board very early, and whatever happened, she wanted to do this film. She had a lot bigger films kind of queuing up to use her, and she said, "No, I really want to do this film," and she stuck with us. She was like a fairy godmother for us. She made sure everyone was really looked after. With Sean's character, I really needed someone that you could believe that could survive out in these extreme locations. And also, there's just something about his face and the way he looks. He's got an amazing look, I suppose, and a presence that it just brought a little bit of tension to his character. You weren't totally sure if you could trust him and trust everything that he was saying. And I found that was very strong as well.
We've got a call on the line from the United Arab Emirates. Emmanuel, thanks for calling from the UAE. What would you like to ask?
Yes, please. Mr. Asif, good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, please. It's quite interesting to see you on the screen today. Well, my question is this: what has it been that the computer graphics have taken the role of the real thing in film?
Okay.
I think the reason is you can control it. I suppose, you know, the thing about shooting like our film we shot in the Arctic, you can't control the weather. One day it's sunny, one day it's snowing, one day it's raining, you know, and it makes it very difficult. And I suppose what people like to do is to be able to control every element of a film. Now, I personally like the challenges of things that you have to react to real locations and real places and real people. I think there's something kind of organic about that. Whereas if you have everything that's created by computer, it can become a bit plastic and it just loses the texture. So it seems to me, for me, it's a kind of unusual way, but I think that's the reason the studios like it, because, you know, if something doesn't work, you can just delete it with a computer mouse and you recreate something. I presume that's the reason why cinema's going that way. Also, of course, people like special effects. They like Star Wars, you know, so that once you have a film that becomes a blockbuster, it's a lot easier to keep creating these kind of magical worlds.
Well, it certainly would be hard to fake this environment that you shot Far North in. Let's take another clip here where Sean Bean and Michelle Yeoh interact as the main characters.
You try.
I knew it was there for a reason.
How can I repay you?
We'll see.
Now, Asif, there, you know, the actors, of course, two star actors there, but you as a director have a reputation for letting the actors be, essentially be themselves. What did you find? I mean, do you find you don't want to get in the way too much, you want them to express it? How did you find that changed their performances?
No, I suppose it's just a matter of you have to cast the right person to begin with. I think that's the biggest job almost for the director, is once you've got your project together and your script together, you've just got to cast the right actor. And once you've got the right actor, generally you kind of let them do what they do. And it's only if there's something that I don't like, then you need to, you know, speak up. Sometimes directors can talk too much and overcomplicate matters. When you've got these great actors, you put them in a situation, and really all of the work has to be done before you're shooting. It's not the best time to try and change things, because you've got, really the shooting becomes about the technical aspects of making sure the camera's in the right place, making sure the lighting is right, whatever it might be. You know, you end up doing the technical things. So all of the prep work has to be done before you get to set. And so really you try to rehearse and talk about any issues in the story, or any questions, or anything that doesn't seem clear, so that the actors, when they're doing it, they just come in there fresh and you're not burdening them with too much information.
How much does that come from your sort of British background and education? Because I would imagine in Hollywood things are a little bit different. How do you compare the British film industry with the Hollywood environment?
I mean, you've got this kind of weird balance of, in the UK, you have a lot of people trying to make films, but they haven't got enough money, or it takes a long time to put them together. In the US, you've got a lot of money, but they're trying to find the right projects and the right scripts and the right talent to put the films together. So it's always this kind of weird balance. You know, you've got almost too much time and too much money in one place and not enough in the other place. So really, people in the UK are, to be honest, in comparison, you've got one of them is a huge factory and the other one is like a cottage industry that's just struggling to survive at times. But we've got amazing talent in the UK, amazing directors, amazing actors, and obviously there's the language. You know, it's very easy to go to work in the US because of the whole language issue. Much more complicated for a director maybe coming from France or Belgium or Germany if they don't speak English. You know, sometimes they speak English better than the English, but you know, sometimes it's just this kind of mental block of working in another language.
Now, actually, talking of that leads me perfectly to talk about your first film, the award-winning The Warrior, which you filmed in India, in Rajasthan mostly, and of course it's in Hindi language as well. Let's take a look at this clip where the main character's, you know, again in a scene where he's confronting a young girl, after a sort of rape and pillage in a small village. Again, we have the dramatic scenery, the very sort of cinematic look, and not very much dialogue there. As you said, I think it was about 7 minutes of dialogue in that movie. How did you find that environment working in what was essentially the Indian film industry?
I mean, we were kind of in the industry, but also because we were away from Bombay, we were kind of away from it far enough that really we were making our own independent film. It was a great experience. Most of the crew were from India. You know, in India you have a huge crew. You know, there's no shortage of manpower in India. So whenever you hire a piece of equipment or a light, it comes with a man. So we were making a fairly small, low-budget film, but we had a crew of about 300 people. And at times, you know, you were shooting on location in the middle of a desert with natural lighting, but we still had 300 people behind the camera. But I was working with fantastic actors. Irfan was just a revelation. He was an amazing person. He's one of my dearest friends now, and you know, he was someone that just showed me what a real actor can do. You write a line, and someone with his presence and talent can take it and just push it to another level, somewhere where you never really imagined that you could push a scene. And we had a mixture of actors like Irfan and non-professional actors. So in that particular scene, there's a young girl, Sunita Sharma, that we met in a school up in the Himalayas, and she's never been in front of a camera before, and she was just fantastic in the film. We also had a young street kid, Nurmani, who spent his life on a train station platform, and he came and worked on the film and has subsequently gone on to work in lots of other Bollywood films. So it was an amazing kind of life-changing experience for the people who worked on the film.
Right. Now, what sort of opportunities do you think there are for directors such as you who, it seems aren't so interested in the big Hollywood blockbuster kind of action movies, or is that the case? Is that the next thing you would go to, or what you'd like to eventually go to?
No, I think really it's just a matter of trying to balance it up. I really like doing my own personal work, and so I write and I direct those films, like Far North and The Warrior. But they take quite a long time to put together, and independent films are always quite difficult to finance. So in between, there's a good chance I go off and do an American film or do another film that I haven't written, which is almost to just keep working. You've got to keep doing what you do in order to learn and to challenge yourself. I think that's what it is. For me, I really want to try and have my own style and my own kind of fingerprint on the types of films that I do, which are these films which are very visual, which the story, is a link between the characters and the landscape where the story takes place. But apart from that, I'd love to try my hand at different genres and different styles for other people.
Well, let's squeeze in a very quick call from Fatima in Nigeria. Fatima, a very quick question for Asif, please.
I want to know if you have any intentions of having an African to act
an African
in
actor.
one of your movies.
Just a quick talk about African actors in your movies.
Yeah, absolutely. It always comes down to the story, and once I can find the right story, I'd love to do a film somewhere in Africa, but it's just, you've got to find the right story, and then once you find the story, you go and you find the actors. But absolutely.
Asif,
my cameraman is half Nigerian and half German, so a lot of the people behind the camera are actually from other places in the world, and so he's Nigerian. I'm
going to try and see, of course, the release of the film Far North in Leicester Square on the 30th when I get to London, but when does it come out in Britain?
Right now, we finished the film. It showed at the Venice Film Festival. It's just going to show at the London Film Festival. And we're in the process of trying to do the deals to sell the distribution. So right now, Celluloid Dreams, the French company, are selling the film.
Okay,
so we haven't got an absolute release date yet.
All right, we'll look out for it. I wish you luck. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. That's it for this show. Pakistani rock star Salman Ahmed joins us on the next show. Send your emails to us and we'll see you next time. Street Talk is next.